Independence versus interdependence. Now, these are terms that you may have run into in psychology class or sociology class. Independence is defined as separateness, internal attributes, and uniqueness of individuals. So how are you different? How have you what's called individuated? How have you become an individual? Obviously, we are born very dependent and tend to grow less so as we get older. And independence is generally seen as healthy once you're in a mature age, if you will. Interdependence is not what it sounds like. It sounds like it should be halfway between dependence and independence, but that's not exactly correct. It's connectedness, social contexts, and relationships. Okay, why are different cultures more independent or less independent? Why do some cultures adopt more interdependence? Well, usually it depends on the context. If we're growing up 10 miles from each other, if we very rural, we can't even see the next house, then we're going to have to be independent. If it's a time before the prevalence of stores, we're going to need to grow our own food and slaughter our own animals and really take care of things for ourselves. We only may make it into town every so often. My wife is reading Little House on the Prairie to my kids, and that made me think of that. Interdependence cultures tend to come out of places where it's necessary that we all work together for survival. It's cooperation. It's not dependence in that if I will just cease to exist without you, that I can't make it without you. No, it's more connected to, say, cooperation. How much is it true that if we're going to survive, we have to do it together? That the trade is necessary. That the generosity, that the sharing. One thinks about the whale strikes, that when a whale's brought back, that meat is taken to everyone, and that everyone benefits from that, is in a way dependent upon it, but in a way that when it's your turn, when you're of the age to be doing this, that you give out, and that at every other age, that those same people, children, will be making sure that you get what you need to survive. That we all have our responsibilities. We all take our turns, and because of that, we all prosper. We all succeed. Interdependence, cultures that are interdependent tend to be nicer to each other, tend to know each other better. And how does that matter in terms of business? Well, if you have far-flung offices, if you're not directly connected to the rest of your company, there's going to be sort of built-in independence. And further, if every person who works as a free agent for you is on their own, doing their own selling, then there may be a culture of independence. However, in sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 model, if you can create a culture of interdependence in your business, where people are better because they expect the others to also act in a way and work in a way that strengthens everyone, you can create an interdependent framework from which you can, be much more successful. Again, this is not dependence where I can't do my work unless you do, but rather interdependence where we succeed better together than we do separately. How do you do this? How do you create interdependence where we work together, where we depend on the other ones to be successful to a degree, but not in a way that's going to kill us if we don't, but rather in a way that's going to be stronger if we do? And there's some, thoughts out there, but one of them that I saw by a lady named Linda Grattan, sorry, I should have had that ready, suggested 5 ways of building that. The first thing she said is to act as a role model at the executive level. You know, you're taking a class like this because you intend to be in management, you intend to be leading others, and you need to find ways of modeling that interdependence, that both in terms of coming through where you need to, but also setting yourself up where someone else's successes, someone else's doing their job well strengthens you, and then you share that. It can't just happen. People got to know about it. You as a leader create the environment in which your business operates. So if you show others that they make you more successful, they'll have a greater buy-in with you, and that will be seen by the rest of the company, the rest of your division or whatever, and that that element of cooperation will begin to develop. The second suggestion was to establish a gift culture. And, these do not have to be tangible gifts that are expensive. This can be any sort of, tit for tat, any sort of pro-social, meaning, reinforces and makes everybody feel better way of providing things that people like. Notes can be, small trinkets, help, whatever you can do that you are giving of yourself and giving of your creativity to others, and to encourage others to do so as well. Okay. The third suggestion she had is to make use of heritage relationships, but by that she meant bolster teams with members who know and trust each other from previous interactions. I mean, presumably you're not starting the business from scratch, and if so, then there has been prior relationships. Build on those. Use what you already have. Point to those. Reward those, and so that people will continue to depend and consciously depend in a way that strengthens both on the previous ones. Create the fourth suggestion: create a real community. Do things that have nothing to do with the bottom line. Picnics, birthday parties. I mean, the silly things that we think don't matter really do. They really do make people feel more connected to where they're working, and they really do strengthen morale and make people feel like the company, the manager, cares about them, and that's going to lead to that positive feelings, that liking being at work. It's going to lead to people wanting to be more cooperative, more interdependent. And finally, encourage people to get the training they need to be able to do so. Now, whether that's training in order to have a skill that others desire, that will make them a more contributing member of that organization, or even getting trained as far as how to interact with people. Okay, now, being that we kind of see independence is nice, independence is good, and everybody needs to be able to be independent, but that interdependence is the destination we're looking at. I wanted to talk about a couple different types of interdependence, and these all come from a gal named Latoya Murray. Give credit where credit is due. And first she talked about pooled interdependence, and it's the loosest form of the 3 kinds. It's the type of interdependence where each organizational department or business unit performs completely separate functions. While departments may not directly interact, they do and do not directly depend on each other. They do pool their interests. They work towards a common goal. So they're completely acting independently of each other, but we're all reading from the same sheet music, and that we all know where we're going. We all have a common goal. Okay? Second one is sequential independence. Sequential meaning one after another. Sequential independence occurs when one unit in the overall process produces an output necessary for the performance of the second unit. So now we're kind of going a little bit more towards dependence, but it can be done in a way that strengthens each other, that the communication between the two, one that's waiting and the one that's getting, can make this so much better in terms of making the product that's going from one to the next exactly what it's going to be able to sell, keeping up on timelines, just-in-time inventory management. For those of you who know what that is, came out of this where enough communications going back and forth so we know exactly what we need when we need, so we're not carrying a bunch of inventory that we don't need. The final type identified was reciprocal interdependence, and it says reciprocal independence is similar to sequential independence, then that the output of one department becomes an input in another. Okay, but it's not their only one, and this is probably the most common, where we need to work together, and we do so in a way that strengthens each other, and that is necessary for the company to be productive, but we're not completely relying on one other part of the organization. That communication is still important, but we also are going out of our way to coordinate with other inputs, other departments. Okay, and the point here is that the better we work together, the better we communicate, the better we understand the needs and the abilities and the timeline that the other parts of our organization are on, the better we're going to be able to respond to and manage our resources, so that we're not acting completely independently, but we're acting in a way that cooperates towards the success of the whole. Okay. So, taking this back towards business on the North Slope. In general, most businesses, if we can work together, if we can all get along and manage our resources better, because none of us have an unlimited amount of resources, we can be more successful. If the North Slope Borough knows precisely what its different divisions are trying to address, what resources are needed, and what assets and tools it has, then they can be more successful. That it's great to be independent, but when we can show our weaknesses, when we can work towards a common goal, we can all be more productive, and we really should be more successful than your average place. I think that because of the nature of the weather and the far-flunkedness of the villages geographically, that we on the North Slope tend to be already more willing to cooperate, and that's sort of baked into our culture, and that we are often collaborating more than you see in a lot of other places. So I think that's to our advantage. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I look forward to a conversation on this one.